Hi, I'm Dan Birnstihl. I'm the farm director here, and welcome to Hippies Farm. We are a 5.5 acre micro farm located in peri-urban Hooksett, New Hampshire. We are certified organic. We've been that way for about a year now. And we've been NOFA members since our inception about 3 years ago at the end of 2017. Our main markets in the area are direct to restaurants, direct to consumers. We sell to a local farm stand, and we also supply a 56 share CSA. We wanted to have you guys on the farm today, virtually, to talk about season extension, efficiency, and market gardening. Some people may be wondering what the heck is a market garden. So we kind of derive a lot of our techniques from the French Parisian market gardens. It was a series of small gardens set up in or around the city of Paris that fed the entire city. As it sounds, and on a setting like ours where we don't have a ton of land, that means we have to be hyper efficient. We don't have tens or dozens or hundreds of acres that we can sprawl out on and just focus on raw numbers. That means we've got to do everything really, really tight on this farm. It also means that we focus a lot on high value crops. Because we don't have as much space to spread out on, we've got to make sure that the crops we focus on bring in a high dollar value and have a high demand. Because of that, our number one crop, our flagship crop, is our Salanova lettuce mix. We sell hundreds of pounds of this lettuce mix every week, bagged up and into CSAs, out to the farm stand. Restaurants take in hundreds of pounds of it. It's a phenomenal crop. It takes a little while, but we use a few techniques to make sure that we're doing it as efficiently as possible. So when we first started, we grew a baby lettuce leaf. It took about 28 days to come to maturity, and we direct seeded it. But we made the switch to the Salanova at the beginning of last year because we grew it as a trial in one of our greenhouses over the winter. We brought it over to a restaurant customer, and the next week we switched back to our baby leaf mix, and they said, "Do you have any of that other lettuce? Can you get us some of that stuff?" They said just the texture, the flavor was better. It grows a more full-bodied flavor and really can develop that flavor profile. And they also said what was interesting was it kept in the cooler better and it filled up a plate better. So they could use less lettuce mix to fill a plate, and they actually had customers that were requesting it. So we made the switch and we've never looked back. The Salanova will take about 2 weeks to grow in cell plugs. We start them in 288s, which is a small cell plug to get started. Most growers recommend 128, and we may make the switch to that at some point, but the 288s have been working for us. So 2 beds will take us about 4 288s. We grow them very close together. Again, limited space means that we don't have a lot of space to sprawl out on. And because the lettuce is only in the ground for about, depending on the time of year, 35 to 60 days, it doesn't really have a lot of time to develop problems that you would see from crops when they're really close together, disease pressures. And then we also, because we rotate crops through in the middle of a season, we don't see a lot of problems with soil root rots building up or pests that would stay in one location. So we inherently have crop rotation as part of our system. So we have these on 6-inch centers, and as you can see, we've got this extra heavy black landscape fabric that we lay out. We made a template that we traced out our holes, drilled them out with a 3-inch saw blade, and now whenever we lay out a fresh piece of fabric, we can lay out our template, and we take a little hand torch and we go through and we burn all the holes out. After that, we'll transplant our lettuces right in here, and that's going to keep most of the weeds at bay for the time that this is in the ground. That makes it a really efficient way to grow this lettuce. We sometimes will have to do a little bit of hand weeding, but we can do that as we go through and harvest. And again, a 100-foot bed is probably going to yield us about 50 pounds on the first harvest. About 2 weeks later, we'll get a second harvest and we'll get another 25 to 50 pounds, and that's kind of being light. We have gotten harvests before that are 100 pounds on a 100-foot bed. So we'll get in the spring and fall in the shoulder seasons, we'll get up to 5 harvests on one crop. This time of year in the midsummer, we get 2 to 3 before it starts to go to seed. So Again, it's a great crop. The real sell for this crop for me was that with our baby leaf lettuce, when it was ready to harvest, it was ready to harvest and you had to get it. And if you didn't, those leaves got really stretched out, the quality went downhill. With the Salanova, if you're not ready to get it the week it's ready, it just grows more leaves. So instead of getting these stringy, non-flavorful leaves, you just get more of these really high quality leaves. So we really like it. Again, it's a little bit more labor on the front end to get these in the ground, but the product that we get on the back end makes it worth it for us. So the black landscape fabric is one of the things that we do to increase our efficiency and to manage weeds. One of the other things that we do is we use these black silage tarps. And this is something that a lot of market gardeners do. We certainly did not innovate this. We've learned from a lot of really smart growers. What we do is we do a stale seed bedding technique. So when we're ready to plant, especially like our arugula or tatsoi or one of our baby leaf greens, we want to make sure that they have a chance to get a head start as best they can. So we're going to come through and we're going to prep our bed. You know, we're going to, if we need to, we'll broad fork it. We'll add any amendments. We utilize chicken manure, feather meal, which is a byproduct, an organic byproduct that adds nitrogen into the soil, and some potash, which is also organic. We have really high phosphorus in our soils. We do a soil test twice a year, so we don't have to add any phosphorus. So as we've continued on, one of the things that we wanted to get out of our operation as much as possible was tillage. I don't remember who I heard this quote from, but one of the great quotes that I heard was that the great sin that all organic agriculture is trying to make up for is tillage. So we're trying to move around that as much as we can. I know why we do it. It is a great way to get your beds ready. It makes a nice seed bed. It gets rid of weeds. So in getting rid of tillage, that means that we have to try to find other ways that we can get those same benefits. So in this field this year, we're just starting our minimal tillage system. It's been working out really well. So we did one last big major tillage event with a rototiller this year, tilled everything up, and then we formed all of these beds by hand, which was not fun. It was labor intensive. You can ask our crew here. They didn't like doing it, but now that they're set, they're set. So when we turn a bed over now, we'll remove the old crop residue, and then to get our seed bed ready, what we'll do is we'll spread our amendments, we'll remove the old crop residue, and then we'll use this tool. We just got this tool a little while ago. This is called a tilther. And so the tilther is interesting because it looks like a little rototiller, which it basically is, but the tines don't go any deeper than about an inch. And so a lot of that microbial activity that we're really looking to preserve in our soils is down below that top level, where we're mostly using like compost or something else, our old crop residues. We just want to break that down and make a nice smooth seed bed. But we're not disturbing any of that activity. We're not opening that up to oxygen, which is going to kill off a lot of that microbial activity. My favorite part about this tool is that it's so portable. It's light, it's portable, it's easy to use when it doesn't get stuck on landscape fabric. And it's battery operated. So we plug these batteries in at the end of the day, and the next day it's ready to go. So it's a pretty simple tool. It's just a little rope that's attached to the button of your drill. And you pull a little handle here. Oh. And so it's going to spin those tines, and that's going to make your seed bed that you can plant into. So we'll go through, we will create that nice seed bed, and then that leads us to our stale seed bedding technique. The next thing we want to do is we want to give some of our smaller crops and some of those harder crops like carrots a chance to get a head start over these weeds. So we use stale seed bedding. So we'll get everything ready like we're just ready to plant it. The next step is going to be seeding. And then we'll water the beds in, and we cover them with these black silage tarps. And what that's going to do is it's going to encourage the weeds to come up, hit the tarp, and then the heat of the sun is going to kill those off. Depending on how warm it is on a day like today, if we get a week of days like today where it's 90 degrees plus, we can see this work its magic in as quick as a week and a half. Otherwise, it may take about 2 weeks plus. So this bed has probably been covered for a little under a week now, and you can see it's already looking pretty good. Pretty clear of weeds, no real little ones coming up. We got a few stragglers here, but if we leave this over the weekend, it'll clear most of this stuff up. We also will sometimes, if we uncover the bed, we really got to get this back into production. We don't have another 2 weeks to wait for it. We'll tarp it, we'll wait for about a week, and then when we uncover, we'll see if those weeds, those little baby weed seeds on the top, have hit the white thread stage, and that's just when they emerge. They look like little white threads. And we'll kill them off then using a flame weeder. And the benefit of the flame weeder is it's just a torch that we pass over the top of the soil. That doesn't affect any of the microbial activity because it's just passing over. So it's superheating one area really briefly that's right at the top, and it's just gonna singe those weeds. What that's also doing is it's not stirring up the soil and allowing new weed seeds below the top of your seed bank to stir up to the surface and then germinate and become a problem for us later. So when we do that, if we plant a small salad crop in here, like an arugula, that takes a few, probably about a week until it really starts to get going. So we can see the arugula grow in, get a nice stand, and then totally outcompete these weeds. So the other thing that the black fabric will do is if we leave it on longer, we wet it down, we leave it on longer, it's going to encourage the earthworms that are in the soil to come up to the surface. They really like that damp, dark environment and warm environment. It makes them think it's nighttime. So they'll come up and they'll start feasting on all that plant matter that's right up at the top there. One of the game changer tools that we purchased last year is our quick cut harvester. So this tool we got from a company called Farmer's Friend, another battery operated tool, really handy. And this turned harvesting a bed of baby salad greens from something that would take 2 of our workers about an hour to do with a knife in the field. Now one of our workers can get a bed done in 10 minutes. So again, battery operated. The chalk just grabs onto a little post right here, and as it spins, it's going to operate this oscillating blade as well as these flails. So it's going to cut your crop and throw it back into the basket. So we've got our nice stand of arugula right here. This has been harvested a few times, so it's on the way out. And so we come through and we can just use this tool to it's as easy as that. So we'll have someone come out with a harvest bin, work right down the line, and we can get this done in 10 minutes, harvest hundreds of pounds of arugula, just like that. So now that we've got our arugula out of the field, the next stop is over to the wash pack, get this washed up, packaged up, and put in the walk-in cooler. So we're gonna head on over there now. So, as I mentioned earlier, on any given week, we're sending out hundreds of pounds of salad greens, whether it's to direct customers or to restaurants. Most of our customers want their salad greens pre-washed. On our first year, we operated totally out of a 3-bay sink, and we spent most of our week in that washroom sending through greens and hand washing greens in a 3-bay sink. Drying them in a hand crank salad spinner, it was not working for us. So we upgraded, we built this new wash pack facility, and it's totally changed the way we're able to operate. We can send those 100 pounds of greens in through here through a day. So the first step is we'll bring it in. We've got this big wash tub. This is our greens washer now. So this is a jacuzzi pump hooked up just to a series of tubes, PVC pipe that's got holes drilled in it. So we fill this up with water, we dunk our greens in here, and then we turn on the pump. And as you can see, it's a nice little jacuzzi for our greens. We'll let that run for about 2 to 5 minutes. And while we're letting that wash, we can work on other things. Again, typically we have a few 100 pounds of greens coming through. So the first one will start we'll prep the next batch. And then as we're pulling out that first batch, we're getting that second batch ready, moving down the line. After this water starts to get a little bit murky, we drain it. We have a 1,500 gallon holding tank in the ground right here, and then we can pump that water back out, use it to irrigate some of our non-edible crops. Not sure the integrity of that water, but it's great for trees. So after we send it through the bubbler, we'll put the product into these food-safe plastic bins. These are sanitized and washed every time. And from there, they go into this modified washing machine. So this is a hack developed, or at least brought to us by our friend Michael Kilpatrick. And it's just an old Maytag washing machine that's been turned into a new salad spinner. Everything has been removed from this except for the pump and a timer. So we'll fill these bins up halfway, turn on our timer, and spin this for about 2 minutes. After that, any of the greens are removed from there, put onto this drying screen. From there, we package it up either into 10-ounce bags, 2-pound totes, or 10-pound totes to then go out to our customers. So we've washed all of our greens. Let's go take a look at some of our high tunnels where we've got our fruiting crops. We'll talk a little bit about season extension. So we're here in one of our high tunnels. This is tunnel 3. We have 4 main high tunnels, and then we are just installing a new caterpillar tunnel as we speak. And we have a few different techniques for season extension that you can see in here. Some of the easier, more affordable and mobile forms of season extension we use are low tunnels. We've got just some small hoops that we can set up, bring out either some row cover or some greenhouse plastic, and throw that up in any field we need to. If we see that we've got an early frost or a late frost coming, and we're trying to just either get our crops started early or just get a few more days out of it, we can throw those low tunnels up. They're a really good way to extend our season. Anything that we want to be growing throughout the winter comes down to the high tunnels. These have quickly become a must for us. We did our first season without high tunnels. I couldn't imagine going back to growing without them in New England. So you can kind of see a few of the things that are going on in this tunnel right now. The first one is that we use a really aggressive form of pruning on our tomatoes in here, and that goes back to efficiency as well. We want to make sure that when our workers are coming through and harvesting, there is no working and trying to find which tomatoes are ripe. You can see it all right here. It's all ready to go. This also, because we are a zero spray farm, we use no pesticides, organic or conventional. So we try to think around our diseases and try to make sure that we're making life uncomfortable for them so they can't get established. So by opening up all this area, we get good airflow coming through. So our nasty leaf funguses like your early blights, late blights, septoria can't get established. That airflow is going to keep water from standing as well as being covered from the rain. And our first year we grew out in the fields, all of our tomatoes on more space. Our second year we brought everything into the tunnel, started trellising and pruning really heavily, and it was a total game changer. I think we grew twice as much on less space. So as the season goes on, you can see these tomatoes are pretty tall. Once they get up to the ceiling, we utilize these tools called tomahawks, and this just has a little bit more twine on there. So as the tomatoes grow, we can let out some twine and lean these guys a little bit further down the row and lower them down. So we're harvesting the fruits up the stalk. When we get, harvested up to here, we're gonna have one guy come through, one guy or gal come through, let out some twine, lower this down. So instead of all of our workers having to come through 2 or 3 times every week, get on step ladders to get up there and get the crop, you get one person who comes through every other week, let everything down, and it makes life easier for everybody else. So you can also see down at the soil here, some of our intercrop still coming through. So we had a baby leaf lettuce mix in here as just a bridge crop. This tunnel was mostly our Salanova lettuces in the winter and spring. And then when we put our tomatoes in, we interplanted them right into that, the lettuces. When the lettuces were done, we took out as much of that plant material as we could, and we covered up with black plastic. We are moving away from the black plastic. It's not a great thing to use year after year and have to throw it away. So what we're going to do is probably move to a silage tarp. It's reusable, works better anyway, and we can use it for other things. So probably the biggest thing that the eye is drawn to is this big black duct that comes out of the soil here. This is part of our climate battery system. And the climate battery system is an active thermal heating and cooling system. So the idea is on warm days, like today, but especially in your shoulder seasons, we have fans on the inlet of that duct up in the top of the tunnel, as well as on the exhaust on the other side of the tunnel. And when it's warm, it's going to turn those fans on, draw the air in, and it feeds it down about 4 feet down into the ground into a series of ducting that runs along the floor of the tunnel, and that heats up that thermal mass. So when it comes out the other end, it's now been cooled by the cooler thermal mass. On cold nights, we can also turn those fans back on, and it's going to draw that heat back up out of there. It's not going to keep it 70 or 80 degrees, but it will keep it above freezing. And so what that does is it allows us to not have to use row covers or additional layers of fabric in these tunnels. This is our first season with the climate battery. We just got it finished in October of last year, so we didn't really have time to charge the thermal mass. But what we did see is that on especially warm days, it takes the maximum temperature down a little bit, and on cold nights, it takes some of the edge off of it. So it just levels out all that temperature. We were approved this year for a $15,000 Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education grant. So we will be studying this system over the next 2 years, and we'll have that data in a little while that we can give hard information as to how effective this is. Anecdotally, we've spoken to growers in Pennsylvania and Nova Scotia, and they've reported great things with systems like this, so we're really excited about it. Our backup heating system in this tunnel is we also have a radiant heating system. So we take recycled cooking oil from the restaurant, our restaurant customers, bring it onto the farm, and use it to power a spent cooking oil heating boiler. And then we send that hot water in the soil to heat the soil temperature. And that's going to allow us to activate that microbial activity and then ideally radiate that heat upward, making this an ideal location to grow year-round. All right, well, that's it. Thank you guys for coming and taking a virtual tour of the farm, seeing how we grow. It means a lot. And check us out on social media at Hippies Farm on both Facebook and Instagram. You can find our produce at Johnson's Golden Harvest, which is a local farm stand, and at our sister restaurant, New England's Tap House Grill. When we don't have such tight restrictions going on, we are also an agritourism component. So you can book the farmhouse on the property on Airbnb. You can rent the property for your weddings. And we also try to have farm-to-table dinners here where we'll take our product, send it over to our sister restaurant. They'll design a 5-course tasting menu, bring it back here, and you can have that meal here at the farm. So come check us out. We're really happy you could learn how we do things here. Have a great season.